It's time for Stars on Sports,
a podcast radio show dedicated to sharing stories about our athletic program at Lansing Community College.
LCC Athletics has a strong tradition.
24 national championship wins.
Over 170 All-Americans.
19 MCCAA All-Sports trophies.
Stars on Sports will introduce you to individuals that have contributed to our program's success and give you the backstory on what it takes to develop it.
We'll also dive into and break down the topics and issues facing athletic departments across the nation and right here at LCC.
This is Stars on Sports. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stars on Sport. Today, I'm joined by our producer, Daedalian Lowry, as assistant AD Cutter is not with us. So we're going to have some fun today. Daedalian, both you and I like music, and we've talked about how music and sports are alike in the past. And one of my favorite pastimes is going to sporting events or concerts or other venues for performances. So I thought we'd have some fun and talk about some of our favorite memories, some of our favorite, even if maybe we weren't there in person, ones we remember of just groups we liked or something, or venue that we liked. And we've talked about concession stands in the past, so we'll stay away from that, but I'm sure we'll hit on that a little bit.
I got no problem with concession stands.
Well, then we'll probably be hitting on it again.
Who doesn't want some second-rate pizza somewhere? I'm not saying that they all, at a high price. $5 a slice or whatever it is.
When you go to venues, do you normally go to the concession stand?
Occasionally I do. I just recently went to Whose Line Is It Anyway? I actually saw that twice over the last couple of months or so. It was, as we just said, we got our junior mints and they were all melted, and I paid $3 or $4 for a box of these things, and I'm just like, really? Okay, all right.
May I ask what venue that was at?
The one was at Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor, and then I saw them up in Saginaw. I want to say that was also like it was like Michigan Theater or something similar to it. Yeah,
I like the Michigan Theater. Been there for a couple.
The one in Ann Arbor is really nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
And they've done a nice job of maintaining. I mean, it's an older facility, and we'll talk about, because some of my favorite facilities are the older ones that they've kind of maybe renovated but kept true to the character, because when they built them back then, it was, they were grander and pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they did that a lot in Ann Arbor, where they've got like a Target with I want to say it's got 2 levels or something, and a CVS, and
right down there.
I actually forgot my readers. Went to go buy some readers. Did not know there was an upstairs to the CVS, and eventually found it. So.
Isn't that great? Though, right there, you can get them right next door, and
then go watch a movie.
So, Who Line Is It Anyway? We weren't going to talk about that today, but that's one of my favorite shows, because I like to be funny. I think they're funny. The way they improv is impressive to me, and it's just good entertainment.
Oh yeah, it's I've tried to do it myself, and I'm not that great at it.
Me neither. I try too, but that's what impresses me even more, of how good they are. And just like in anything, they fail sometimes. But,
they do, yeah.
But for the most part, they are incredible in my eyes. That is very impressive to me.
Well, and the interesting perspective I had, because, again, I saw them in Ann Arbor first, and then I saw them in Saginaw first, then I saw them in Ann Arbor. And they do recycle some jokes here and there.
Okay.
They do.
I was going to ask, you went twice, so that means you liked it the first time.
I loved it both times. But, they definitely had some jokes in there where I was like, yeah, you guys use that in Saginaw.
But I wonder, I haven't seen them live, which I might have to look them up now and do that. I probably will. But watching them even on TV, like, they obviously pull things out of the hat and are random, but they must prepare in some ways and have some general things. I like some of the music ones they used to do or do.
Well, and the cast there wasn't the full. It wasn't with Wayne Brady and Colin Mockery, but Ryan Stiles was there, and some of the other regulars on there. And when I was saying that too, they recycle a lot of the jokes about Michigan.
Okay.
So they would do that, but they were still a lot of improv there. So it was still a great show.
And again, I just like improv in general. So for them to rotate, I like those ones you mentioned, but I'm sure there's other good ones too that you appreciate. And they always had subs in on the show. At least the fourth one would sometimes sub. And then, there's only so many Michigan jokes anyway out there. So when you think of you have a big music background. So what do you think of when you think of maybe some of your favorite fan experiences in the music realm?
Outside of the music realm in the music realm? Are you talking about specific shows? The very first show I ever saw was Metallica.
Okay.
And I was a young gent, and it's funny that you bring this up because I actually last night I was kind of looking around trying to find some different shows that I might want to see this year, and the pricing of music venue, music shows. I don't know if this is the same in the sports world, but tickets are outrageous.
Yes, they are.
Growing up as a young man, it didn't matter if it was Metallica or it didn't matter if it was the band down the street. It was like $25 a ticket. And now to even get a good show, seat, I'm trying to think of who I was looking at last night. I can't even remember, but it was like $500 for front row tickets.
Crazy, isn't it? I know. I actually went to a music concert a couple months ago in Chicago at the United Center, which is a basketball facility. So that's where they cross over. Zach Bryan. Actually, I'm becoming a Zach Bryan fan. He's a country singer, folk singer. My kids love him, and so does my wife. And so our family went and watched him. And he's coming to Detroit, and they want to see him again. And the ticket prices are incredible. And what's on top of that are the fees that you have to pay for tickets. And I know there's lawsuits out there regarding in that. So they're almost like, and sports isn't too different. There's fees there too. I don't remember the fees being as much per ticket, but yeah, I think that's a concern in society today that you're costing people out of enjoying those events because they're so high.
And as you're talking about it, I'm wondering, do your kids have that reaction? Because you and I both grew up, prior to all this, so we know what it was like to go see a great show for $25.
My kids that value money do. My kids that don't value money, think, hey, we're going. I don't care, And it's true. Sometimes you got to weigh it, and we're going to go. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to make it happen. And it's hard because Ford Field's a nice venue. We could go to Columbus cheaper, but then you're driving, and that's why we went to Chicago originally. He wasn't coming to Detroit at that time, but I enjoyed it, and it was a great concert. I'm not even a big Zach Bryan fan. I am becoming one, but it was a great concert, and I would go back, and there is a certain price I would pay now, and it'd be more than I thought I would.
Right.
I mean, the lowest tickets we found for being high up at the end are like $275 with the fees included. And since I've already seen them once, I don't think I need as good as seats. And I wonder with today's technology, the sound, and these performers are pretty good at, getting to the whole crowd, and you got the big scoreboards. So I don't know if I need front row seats, but for some people I probably would, or at least go if it's the first time seeing them.
Well, I would say that's part of the fortunate part about getting a little bit older is you don't need those front row seats anymore. And the one I was looking up, it was Steve Martin and Martin Short.
Okay.
And it was like $500 for front row tickets. And I'm like, no, I'm not, even like way in the nosebleed, it was still like over $100. And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. But again, as I get older, I can take the nosebleed seats, but I still am not willing to pay over $100 just to go see certain shows.
Yeah, for certain ones. But we're talking comedy with you. I like this. I thought we'd be more music.
Well, yeah,
I love comedy.
My taste has changed a little bit too there. So
yeah, I've gone to. When I've gone and seen comedians, they've been at the Wharton Center, which I think is a great facility for the Lansing area. And I know they're building or have two smaller ones now downtown Lansing that I have not visited yet, but look forward to seeing events there. So we're fortunate in this area, I think, to have. And
I believe that those shows, have been under $100, to go in there. But I think that's general admission too. So, as you know, I don't go to sports shows that often, or sports events. I guess you don't call them shows. So, is the same thing happening in the sporting world? Is this the same circumstance?
It is, especially. The stars, like my son went to the Michigan-Ohio State game this last fall, and he probably played, I mean, he kept waiting and waiting, but I think he ended up paying $300 for a ticket. He wanted to go that bad. It was the biggest game of the year, and he wanted to be there. And I think he thought after the game, which it was an incredible game and a championship was on the line, I think he thought it was worth it. Postseason events. Again, those championship events are definitely significantly higher than some of the non-marquee events, such as big school versus little school, or two schools that might not be ranked. So it plays into it. It'll be interesting to see, like Michigan Stadium, it's the largest college stadium in the country, and it's 110,000 people. And they kept building as more people and the supply and demand was there. But with all the TV taking place in sporting events, I wonder if that will impact. I think now they're kind of lessening stadium seats for sporting events and making them a little smaller because the crowd. And I would think some of it's cost. I would think some of it's TV availability. But, I think about it, music concerts are probably one of the things that help make it maybe to be a larger venue.
Well, I kind of do wonder if they still get the same. I mean, they seem to sell out a lot. At least they say they sell out. I don't know. In general, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I guess I was also kind of curious as you were talking there. I've heard you and Cut talk about it from time to time on the show about ticket prices in the sporting world inflating as maybe a team does better. So does that happen with the Lions where they actually had a sensational season? And
they significantly increased their season ticket prices and priced some of their fans out of getting them. But
that's a shame.
The supply is there and the demand is there. So you heard complaints when they first came out with it, but they're still sold out because they're that good now, and they haven't been that good in a long time, which I think helped play into that. I mean, when they weren't good, they weren't getting high ticket prices or selling out. So definitely improvement or having a strong team helps with revenue and selling tickets. We see it even here at our level, even in our gymnasium. Like our women's basketball team had a great year. We don't charge for admission, by the way,
right?
Which we could. About half the schools in our league do, and it's probably around $5 a ticket. But that's going up. I've seen up to $15 a ticket at some places that we visit, which I think is high, but as we talk about increased tickets, the Lugnuts, when they first started, was like $6. They're probably double that now in the 20 years that they've been in Lansing. But our crowds for our women's team, who won the league and contended for a regional championship, were incredible. I mean, some days they outdrew our men's team, and probably most days because our men's team just didn't have as good a year. So I'm thinking people want to come and watch, especially when your time is valuable nowadays, and the cost wasn't a factor for us, that they want to watch good teams. You've heard Coach Scott talk about, people want to follow winners, So definitely in sport, definitely costs have increased. There's still a demand, as you mentioned. They're still selling out stadiums across the country. It's interesting, the new stadiums are being built and how expensive they are. And one of the main reasons I think new stadiums are being built is they're trying to make them more universal. Like I read this great book about pro soccer where around 20 years ago, they just had the soccer stadiums that were just used for soccer, and they were not losing money, but they weren't maximizing money. Now, all these premier teams are building new venues that can host concerts, can host football. The United States football now plays in countries around the world, and the new stadiums are trying to be more multi-purpose so that they can host many events. And the one thing I'm a little nervous is Ford Field, but a little big. They're going to pack 60,000 people in there. Where one of my favorite venues of all time to watch sporting events, concerts, with the Palace.
Oh yeah,
Auburn Hills. Just a nice. And I haven't been to the new one, Little Caesars Arena yet, but at least for a concert. But I like going to the Palace for any event.
I gotta say, I like the fact that they turned Pine Knob back into Pine Knob.
I agree. The problem with Pine Knob is it's outdoors, but I've seen some great concerts.
But I've seen some really good shows there. Had some good times too. I actually saw a Lollapalooza concert there one time. Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't get to ask you. Tell me about one of your favorites. I know you mentioned Zach Ryan. Is that his name?
Zach Bryan. Yeah.
So what's one of your favorites then?
Sporting or music?
Let's go with music.
Okay. Well, that's up there, but I'm a Bon Jovi fan.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
And I saw him at Pine Knob, but again, I saw him at the Palace too. And the Palace concert, I like concerts where you still hear the singer sing, but the crowd joins in. One doesn't overpower the other. And we've probably been to both where the singer doesn't even sing and the crowd sings. I like that, but I like the balance. And that's where I thought Zach Bryan was incredible, where the combination of both. But I thought the concert I saw at the Palace was better for me than Pine Knob with Bon Jovi. So that's one of my favorite ones. But I've seen like REO at a fair. That was fun. But most of my concerts have actually been at the Palace.
I remember seeing REO Speedwagon. I have never actually seen Bon Jovi, surprisingly.
Okay, well, he's coming out again with a new album and a new tour.
Does the guy ever stop?
No, he's in his 60s now, and I really like him as a person, as a philanthropist, and he's a life person, and he again, we just align with some of the things we think, and how he reflects on his life as a rock star for 40 years is pretty cool to me, and still going strong. Some of his songs are big hits in the sports world that you go to sporting events and you'll hear.
And more power to him, man, if he's still doing it. I do want to give the listeners a little bit of an inside scoop on Greg's take with the Bon Jovi 2. Very often I do DJing events here on the campus of Lansing Community College. Greg will be walking by. Now, understand, I'm playing to a younger crowd. They're enjoying the newer stuff. Greg comes by, and Greg wants to hear what?
Bon Jovi.
Every time. He's like, hey, man, you got some Bon Jovi? Yeah, I do, Greg. I'm not playing it right now.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was the athletic director at Mason High School for 14 years and developed some close friends as colleagues there, and a couple of them are announcers. So even when I go back, and if they're in charge of the music, as soon as they see me, they'll
throw some Bon Jovi out for you.
Living on a prayer, have a nice day, no apologies.
All right, I'll try to fit one in for you next time,
the
man.
kids like it. This is so dumb, but when my kids were in their mom's belly, I would play Bon Jovi on their stomach just so they would like them. My youngest daughter, loves them. My son, he could take them or leave them, and then our other ones, they all appreciate it. Like whenever a new friend comes over to our house, I ask if they know a Bon Jovi song, if they can come in any farther, and most know "Living on a Prayer." But
that's fair. At least they got one down. And in years, the ones that don't appreciate it, they're gonna go, "Oh, I love that song because it was Dad."
Yeah, that's right. That's what they associate.
Years away. Yeah. So I guess my other question too is, I haven't gone to as many sporting events. Do you find that the vibe is different, say between, like, I've been to a Lugnuts game. Mm-hmm. I've never been to a Tigers game. I have been to a Lions game. But is the vibe different, the feel? Because that's the best part of going to a live sporting event, is being in that atmosphere, being in that situation. It isn't always the game even. It's just being there.
Yeah.
So do you find the vibe's always different no matter what the sport or between sports?
Yeah. Each sport is different. Outside weather can play just like at Pine Knob. It can play in whether you enjoy, and sometimes it's a memory or the downpour in that concert or such. So it could be a memory for a different reason. But I've appreciated that, like most people that are sports fans remember their first Major League Baseball game, going into the big stadium, the green grass, the smell of the grass, the perfect line. So it seems like that's always a memory. But then the game it's real. We call it reality TV. It's real life events. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. So it's exciting. And some of my favorite memories are big losses. I was at Michigan Stadium for two of the worst losses in college football history. The Hail Mary that the University of Colorado threw in the last second, and then the upset Appalachian State did over Michigan in 2006 or 7 of a small school team beating a ranked school, and just the disbelief there at the end of the game. You're all just sitting there like, what just happened? So it's a little different than music, because music is kind of constant throughout. Yeah. You're engaged, you're following along. It might not be a song you like per se, but it's continuous, where in a sporting event it could be a little more up and down depending on the flow of the game. But
Gotcha.
If the ending's incredible or something significant is won at the event, it's it's a pretty cool atmosphere after the game. Or just I remember one night game at Michigan, they came back and beat Notre Dame, and for 20 minutes after the game, we were just singing songs in the crowd. No one left, and it was just a concert. Again, that's how much music and
That's
sports
awesome.
are aligned. And it was after midnight, and everyone was just happy and singing and fun.
Very cool. And now my other question is, though, is there a difference between pro and college sports? The vibe, the feel, when you're there?
That's a good question. And in sports, you become, when we started talking about this topic, I was thinking of the word fanatic. We're fans of Bon Jovi or even Wayne Brady or Michigan Wolverines or the LCC Stars. So you kind of have that allegiance to them, and you become part of their team. It becomes we. But it's a little different because at the college level, it's a community, it's a city, it's a college campus. But I would think the good pro teams have that too. Detroit, I mean, you're part of Detroit. Even the state of Michigan are Detroit Lions fans. And so I would argue it's not too much different, even though they're kind of different demographics that attract to those teams. But you're a fan of that team, so you cheer for them, you support them, you yell at them, you yell at the officials if they mess with your team. And when the Detroit had a great season this year, people talked about how loud Ford Field was. It was the loudest it ever was. So it's crazy to me, fans just yelling and screaming at an event for a touchdown. That.
And people actually cheering for the Lions.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. So I would think most people think there probably is some difference, but to me, you're a fan of that team, you're cheering, they're doing well. It's similar. You're bringing people together.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
And the exciting thing for me is it goes back through history. I was a big sports history person growing up, and ancient Greek sports, the gladiators, the Colosseum, people came together to watch fighting or the Olympics, and so cheering on individuals. You probably chose a side. You probably chose a fighter. The what the Coliseum looks like. I mentioned earlier some of these old stadiums are just sweet to me, like the history of what took place in them, or how they were designed, or how they carry noise. I mean, there was a big shift of steeper stadiums, which I didn't like because you're sitting on top of each other, but they wanted you closer to the stadiums, closer to the venue. I think they've kind of gone away with that with technology because of the sound systems and the big scoreboards you can put everywhere in the arena. I mean, going and sitting in the last row of
kind of helps us shorter folk to be able to see over you taller folk, though. So I'm not complaining.
I feel bad. I just went and watched a musical at the Wharton Center, and I felt bad and sitting in the middle of the people behind me because I am a little taller. But I know they design them well, so they're offset. But at some sporting events, it's easier to watch it on the TV than it is to see, the actual real life thing.
That is actually one of the other things that I found going to music concerts. Sometimes I'll get there and I'm like, where I'm sitting, even though I paid pretty darn good money for it, I'm kind of going, well, I'm just watching it on the screen anyway. Why am I here? And that's and I don't like being that guy because I love music. I love being there. I love being in the venues, but I just don't do it as much anymore.
Well, that's all part of the logistics of going. Is it worth it? Is the cost worth it? And I agree. When we went to Zach Bryan in Chicago, we were close and we could see his face. But I like just all the singing. The next time I just want to be there and hear the people singing. And to me, I like it at church when there's a cappella singing. I like it at the Wharton Center when there's a cappella singing. So it's just what you like and what it's worth. And unfortunately, nowadays, cost has become, I think, a more important factor in making those. Maybe it was back then. Maybe $25 was a lot for a ticket back then. But I think that definitely changed. But it's still a big part of our society. You see the facilities they're building. They're still be able to charge these costs and selling out crowds.
Yep.
The demand of trying to get these tickets. So something's still working. It's good entertainment for our society, which with all the anxiety and mental health awareness. I think this is one way to alleviate that.
Yes,
going to
definitely.
enjoy a sporting event or a concert
and
or a comedian.
By any means, I don't want to say that it doesn't have a purpose, because it's kind of what we just been talking about. A lot of the times people are just paying to be there in the environment, the atmosphere, and I get that.
Yep.
I'm just older now, and I'm a curmudgeon, and so whatever.
Well, that keeps us young. Hopefully going to things like this keeps us young. But the concession part was what being the curmudgeon about the markup on it. But when you're there, you have to do what you got to do.
Right on.
So, all right, good stuff. Go Stars. Stars on Sports is recorded live at the WLNZ studios. Engineering and production assistance are provided by Daedalian Lowry and Jeremy Robinson. You can listen to this episode and other episodes of Stars on Sports on demand at lccconnect.org. To find more information about our athletic program, visit lccstars.com. Thanks for listening. Go Stars.